Hello everyone and welcome to this video on Fusion 360 Basics. In this video we're going to look at how to log into the Fusion 360 program, how to create parts and projects, how to navigate the interface in general, and how to set our preferences. Okay, so first things first. When we first launch the Fusion 360 program, we will be presented with this screen. What we need to do here is we need to log in using our Autodesk account details. The reason that we need to log into the Fusion 360 program is that it is cloud-based. What this means is that whenever we create data with Fusion 360, whether that be a component or a drawing or a simulation, it is automatically saved to the Autodesk cloud. This is quite nice because it means that wherever we log into Fusion 360, whether it be at home, at work or somewhere else, all of our data is available and ready for us to use. Okay, so there's quite a lot going on with this interface, so we're going to discuss a few items one at a time. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the data panel. The data panel is what we use to access all of our Fusion 360 data, what we use to create new projects, and what we use to share those projects with other people. We access the data panel by clicking on the icon in the very top left corner of the screen, which looks like a series of 9 dots. As soon as we press that icon, the data panel will fly out from the left hand side, and as you can see, I've got quite a list of projects here. You will probably see the samples projects list if you're launching Fusion 360 for the first time. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a project. Okay, whenever we create data in Fusion 360, we need to save it to a particular project. So I'm going to create one now. So I'm going to press the blue button at the top of the data panel that says New Project, and I'm going to give that project a name. Once I'm happy, I can press Return, and that will create the project for me. If I then double click on that project name, it will take me into that project folder, and as you can see, this is a brand new project, there's no data here yet. One of the things that I can do from this particular screen is also create subfolders within that project. So if I want to organize this project into several folders, I can press the new folder button, give that folder a particular name, and again press Return. So if you want to organize your data in this way, you do have that option. One of the other things that I can do from this screen is invite people to collaborate on the project with me. I do this by clicking the People button at the top of the project screen and entering the email address associated with the Autodesk account. Okay, so if I was to put up an email address in here and then press the Invite button, that would send an invitation email to that person, and once they'd accepted that invite, they will be able to see that project in their data panel whenever they launched Fusion 360. Okay, so now probably a good thing to do is to create some data to show you how that is saved inside the data panel. Okay, so I'm going to quickly create a cube. Okay, I've just created some geometry there for the purposes of saving an example component. So I'm then going to go to File and Save in order to save this component I've created. I'm going to name my component accordingly, and I will be presented with a default location for this component. So I can press this down arrow here if the default location is not correct, and I can pick one of my other projects. But in this case this is correct, so I'm just going to press Save. What we will see now is if we go back into our test project, we will see our component which we've just saved appear in the data panel on the left hand side. Now what you might see is that a small blue spinning circle appears for a few seconds before disappearing. What this means is that while that blue circle is spinning, it is uploading that data to the cloud. Once it's finished spinning and you see a view such as this one, that data has been uploaded and you can safely quit the program and still have that data accessible to you at a later date. One final thing to note about components is that whenever we save a component, it is automatically versioned. What this means is it's very easy to go back to a previous version of a component and work with this historical data. Because we've just created this component and saved it, it is at version 1. If we were to change something about this component, and then save it again. Again, we would see that the blue circle spins on the item name, and again we can see that we've got version 2 there now. If at any point we want to go back to a previous version, we can press the version button in the bottom right hand corner, and we can select whichever version we would like to work on. Okay, that's everything I've got to talk about with regard to the data panel. Next we're going to talk about navigating around in the Fusion 360 interface. We've got several options in order to be able to do this. The first and probably easiest is zooming in and out on the component. So we can do this by using the mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and out in order to focus on a particular area. What we need to remember here is that the interface will zoom in on wherever our mouse is hovering over. So if I'm wanting to zoom in on this top corner, for example, if I hold the mouse over there, as I zoom in, that will become the focus of where I'm zooming in on. The next thing we might want to do is pan the component around. Okay, if I press the middle mouse button or press down the scroll wheel, as is the case with a lot of mice, I can move that component around and I can pan it around the environment. Okay, if I wish to rotate the component, I hold down the Shift key and then press that middle mouse button again, and that lets me rotate the component. Another option that I have for rotating the component or move the component around is using the view cube in the top right hand corner of the screen. I can grab the view cube using the left click of the mouse button, and I can move that in order to rotate my component. The view cube will also allow me to snap to specific views very quickly. For example, if I wanted to look at the front of the component, I can press the front icon. If I want to look at the top of the component, I can press the top icon. If I want to move around the component, I can use these small arrows on either side of the view cube to step around the component and look at the different faces. And if in a particular orientation the component happens to be upside down, I can use these arrows in the top right hand corner to spin the component around in plane. The final option that I have for manipulating the view of my component is at the bottom of the screen. So I have a pan tool here, so I can click the pan tool and I can use that. I can click anywhere I want and pan the component around. I also have an orbit tool, so I can click the orbit tool and move the component around in a similar way. The last thing I'd like to talk about is setting your preferences. In order to set your preferences, you need to click on your name in the top right hand corner of the screen and go down to Preferences. Because Fusion 360 is cloud based, hopefully you should only have to set your preferences once, and then wherever you log into Fusion they will be exactly the same. The only preference that I'd like to talk about at the minute is setting a default scheme for rotating and orbiting around the component. If you happen to have used any other CAD software before, it is quite possible to set your shortcuts or your orientation shortcuts to mimic those of other CAD programs. So for example, if you're a SolidWorks user, then you can set this to SolidWorks and you can press apply. In this particular control scheme, we are changing the buttons used to orientate the component. So in this control scheme, I can press the middle mouse button in order to orbit or rotate around the component. I press Shift the middle mouse button in order to zoom in on the component. I press Control the middle mouse button to pan the component around. The control scheme which you use to orientate the component and move the component around in the workspace is entirely up to you, so please use whichever you feel is most comfortable. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.